Everyone wonders at some point, what is the best carry gun I should get as my first carry gun? Inevitably, this is followed up by buying your second carry gun because you didn't really like your first one, or you found it didn't fit everywhere. So what I'm going to try and do here to avoid you purchasing all of these to figure out which one you like to carry the most, I'm going to hope to try and narrow it down so you can end up with one or two, or however you mean to fit the different outfits that you use, or if you prescribe to a single-use all-around firearm, depending on what you like to carry. But that's a different subject. Now, carry arms can vary in size and weight, shape, style, everything like that. And here's a couple of different varieties. You have your pocket pistols, your 380s, you have your revolvers, your subcompacts, your single stacks, your double stack compacts, and then just for fun I threw on a G34. Now, all of these have a lot of different factors to them that can lead to decisions on what's going to be the best carry firearm for you. Generally speaking, when you get new to carrying, one of the biggest things is noticing it's there constantly. Things like the Ruger LCP I have right here. These guns are great because they can be good at super concealed carry, being it in your front pocket or even on your waistband or your back pocket. You can carry this pretty much anywhere. It's so small. So it's really easy to carry. It's really light, so you're not going to notice it. So it makes great for really deep carry. But now there's detractors when you go super small like this. First downside is if you're a huge guy that's very important on caliber, you'll notice this is only a 380. Now for some people that's enough, for other people it is. I'm not going to get into the ballistics. I think that accuracy is much more important than the caliber that you're shooting. Another downside to something this small is that it's tough to shoot if you have big hands. And I don't. I have a medium-sized hand. As you notice, I can barely get 2 fingers on with the magazine in. If you get a bad grip, it's going to get worse. The recoil on it is going to be much stiffer because it's thinner. So it's going to be harder to control. It's going to be more painful to train with. Those are the two big drawbacks I would say to this. Also, and on this particular gun, the Ruger LCP, the sights are absolutely worthless, which also makes it harder to train. But there are firearms alternative to the LCP that do have better sights. But those are some of the pluses and drawbacks that you see on this. And when you get this small, you also start to lose features, like this one does not have lockback. So if you like to carry extra magazines, that's another sacrifice that you have to make and something you need to think about. Generally speaking though, I think you'd be much better off carrying a medical kit than carrying a second magazine. And there's a lot of company that makes some cool medical kits like Dark Angel Medical, going to give them a plug there, that would be much more likely to be utilized than the firearm itself, a little less transitioning to that second magazine. But I digress. Next up on the list, a little bit bigger than this, is your classic revolver. This is a 5-shot revolver. Obviously now even with New York State's minimum, very limited magazine capacity laws, where you can only hold 10 rounds in a carry gun, 10 plus 1, this only holds 5. So you're down 5 or 6 rounds out of a maximum carry. And that can put you at a disadvantage. Also, if you're a newer shooter, what you're going to find is that the sights on this particular firearm are not overly great, but they are effective. Better than this. This is, it doesn't even need sights. It's that bad. The trigger pull is going to be long. It's going to be heavy. If you're not going to spend the trigger time in onto it, you may have trouble shooting it under stress. You may pull it when that happens. Those are things to keep in mind. Advantages of this. This is really freaking light. Really light. Fully loaded, this weighs under a pound. So it's going to make it really good to carry. It's not so good at carry that you could carry it in a pocket very well. I mean, if you're a real big guy, maybe. But otherwise, for concealed carry, despite the wider grip, you will find that it is actually very easy to carry a revolver. And it's really light. So it makes a great option. I find for anything but t-shirt weather. In t-shirt weather, the wide grip can still cause some issues, especially because it's texturized, it tends to grab the t-shirt. But if you're looking for something lightweight, but almost full 9mm power, I mean, this is a tough little thing to beat. Tough little thing to beat. Now, next up on the list is, this is a subcompact made by XD. advantages to this is you're stepping into full-size, regular, grown-up sights. You're going to get, there's a whole variety of subcompacts that are going to have, all great running, reliable guns. This, the Glock 26, I'm sure there's a bunch of others, I just can't think of them off the top of my head. You get a variety of safety features into them that you can now choose, which is another great thing. Capacity, already, as soon as you get into double stack in New York State, you're going to be topping out on capacity unless you're running 40 or 45 in the subcompact range. This gun in Free America holds 13 rounds of 9mm. Here in wonderful behind enemy lines territory, we can hold 10. So you're at 10 plus 1, you're at the max capacity. Disadvantages to a firearm like this. Again, some people may not like subcompact. If you have big hands, you may not be able to get a full grip on the weapon, which will hurt your ability to shoot it fast, and things like that. You can get extended magazines, but then that creates a different set of problems. Other disadvantages is often these guns, they start stacking on the weight. This particular gun is about, I believe it is 26 ounces unloaded without 25 ounces unloaded without a magazine. Once you add the magazine in that, it starts to add up really fast. So it gets heavy. So if you're sensitive to how much stuff you tend to carry on you, this is going to be a problem. Also, because of the straight angle of how this sticks out and the width of this grip, it is also, you're going to start to run into some profiling issues depending on what you wear. Not very bad. It's still a subcompact grip, so it can still work well, and you can conceal it almost all of the time with no major issues with a quality holster. Again, you're getting too big to pocket carry though. Then you have your single stack guns. Single stack guns, I believe, have a unique advantage in New York State because I'm only losing 3 rounds out of the capacity of this versus what you could be losing if you were in free country. So you retain the majority of your capacity. You get it all the standard chain bearings, 9, 40, 45, whatever caliber is going to float your boat. You can get them in subcompact. This particular one is a compact, and even a full frame. The advantage of these, especially if you head with a poly lower one like the CCW 9, what you're going to get is you're going to get a lighter platform that is going to straddle just a little bit heavier than this one. I believe this comes in at 17.4 ounces unloaded versus this comes in at about 16 ounces loaded. So a little bit heavier, but you get a true semi-auto. You get much more capacity, and you can get into a lot of the standard features. You get good quality sights. You're going to get an easier to run trigger, and that's with a variety of guns. The biggest competitor to this is obviously the Shield or the new Glock 43. Both of those great options for this, and they conceal really, really, really well. Out of all the guns that you're probably going to carry on your waistband, out of these 5, this, even though it's a longer grip than this, is probably going to conceal the best. Because that thinness in the grip is a huge factor. The thinness of the grip is just as important as the width when it comes to concealing these things, and it's something you definitely want to consider. The downsides to this now is you still don't hit that 10 round capacity. With a little lighter, you're going to run into and the slimmer grip, you may find it a little punishing on the recoil. Not that bad, but definitely, not the super most pleasant. Newer shooters may find it a little snappy, a little tougher to shoot. Other disadvantages when you get into like the CCW 9, you lose some features. As you notice, this gun has no external safeties, but if you're carrying, that may not be a feature that you're looking for. But other options like the Shield has an optional external safety. Other disadvantages to this design is, well, that's really kind of it. You lose a little capacity out of the max in New York State, and you can't pocket carry it. But that's really it. This is that nice, happy middle ground that I feel is kind of a good area for New York State. Next up, the classic Glock 19. I learned on this gun. This gun has over 3,000 rounds through it. I like this gun. It's great. This gun it's a great shooter. It's a tank. Anything in this size frame, the XDs, there's a million things in this frame. The double stack compact 9mm, huge market, tons of options. Everything pretty much runs super reliable, very price points. You get awesome varieties of sights, aftermarket sights, huge aftermarket support. You know, you can do anything to the trigger, but once actually you get past any of these, you can pretty much do anything to the trigger. They're great duty performing guns. They're going to be easy to shoot. They're going to be fun to shoot. Everything's good about that when you're shooting them. Concealing them though, not so much. In the winters here in New York, absolutely. Great gun to carry. I would carry it, especially, you know, you got a nice fleece on, OWB it with a fleece. Great. Summertime, it's not a t-shirt gun. Not a t-shirt gun. It's really, really not. I mean, you can do it, but it's not easy. I like to put on a firearm and have it concealed so well that I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it printing and someone looking at me funny, especially in New York State, because people get crazy about that stuff. I don't need the hassle. They don't need to be worried. Everybody just needs to be happy. And that's the way it should be. Everybody should be happy, even if they disagree with you. And then, so disadvantages, tough to conceal, amazing shooter. Weight can vary a lot in this class. So be forewarned, and weight can also vary a lot in this class. If you head into 1911 territory in this, you'll find weights that start exceeding in this class. So you have to be careful. This, you can get too heavy, but otherwise, if you stick with the standard guns, you can be in a great spot. These, again, they start out at the top of the range, what I would consider the top of the range, around 23 ounces. But once you get over that, things start to get a little heavy, and it's something to be concerned about, where if you have a low tolerance for weight and things snagging on your belt line and that kind of stuff, you want to be careful about that weight on top of the profiling issues. Lastly, G34. Not much heavier than this, but you get a much longer grip, you get a full-size grip, and then this is, since it's the G34, you get that competition kind of slide on it. And you know, advantages to that is it's going to be an amazing shooter. It's going to outshoot this all day long, every day. Disadvantages, pretty much impossible to conceal unless you're wearing a sport coat or winter clothing. It's really the extreme of where it's amazing at one thing and terrible at another, and it's just a curve where you see where this can be the most amazing shooter. This is the worst shooter, but it's that same concealability. As you become a better shooter, the concealability becomes harder. And those are your trade-offs. That's the general curve. And that's why I like this, because I feel this is the medium. This is the happy balance, because nothing ever is going to give you everything in carry. There's always things to be sacrificed. And I feel that this is going to be your happy. You want to be in that middle range, because you'll be the most happy shooting it. Well, you won't be the most happy, but you'll enjoy shooting it, and it still won't be a pain in the ass to carry. And I think that's a great place to be. Because if you go too small, you're going to hate yourself. If you go too big, you're never going to conceal carry because it's too heavy, it's too large, it prints everywhere, and that's what's going to happen. Now, if you're like me, what I've kind of transitioned into is I've transitioned into a multi-gun lifestyle where some days I'll carry this, some days I'll carry this. And I find these I tend not to carry as much. Maybe in the winter I might consider taking this up again, but I got to get a new holster for it. Some people will advocate for that, using a multi-gun for different different clothing setups. Other people will say you should always, always, always practice with the same gun, because then you're that much more consistent with it. To each his own on that. I'd say that in New York, it's not always a practical option. In an open carry state, absolutely. Run the same gun every day, all day. Life's good. If you don't want to conceal it, don't conceal it, and run that same gun. So I'd say that sums up my feelings on these. And if you are quick and you have a good eye, you would notice that one of these firearms is not a real firearm. But I like to add surprises in like that. So kudos to you if you caught that before I mentioned this. And as a result, that's why you always treat things that are not firearms like firearms, because you can see how easy it is to mix things up. Alright, well that wraps up this episode. There will be more stuff coming shortly.